Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Button, Season 4, Episode 29. I am your host, Alejandro. With me is the biggest wretched scum of the galaxy.
Paul, hello everybody. I knew we were talking about an Uncharted style game, so I had to wear my slutty deep V.
Yes, I think I had one of those shirts, and I haven't like put it on, and I should have like figured it out when you changed. But hey, how you doing, Paul? Second week of us doing recordings
Doing
again.
good. I'm doing good. I'm alive. Emrys is starting to sleep a little more at night, at least. But he is an energy factory during the day, that's for sure.
I can totally imagine. And okay, just give me a second, and then so we're back, and now let's see how we did with this episode, where we're not gonna be talking about news at all, just some things we've been talking about, especially a game that we've been highly anticipating since like last year, and that was definitely high up there. That I actually did a review for. You can go read that review over at seasongaming.com. But until then, this is just a reminder that this is the X Bottom Podcast, our gaming podcast that posts every Fridays from 10 a.m. onwards, God willing, available in the YouTube channel Escape Gaming, as well as most audio services around the world, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. You can find links in the RSS feed at tinyurl.com/escapegaming. If you enjoy our show, give us a like and subscribe. So, Paul, in the interest of before diving hard into this specific game, this being what we've been playing, is there any other game you kind of want to shout out before we just dive in?
It's not a whole lot anymore, but I will say that thanks to a certain Nintendo Direct coming out of nowhere, they released the long-awaited and much-requested Castlevania DS collection named the Dominus Collection, which I thought was very clever because it has the word D and S in
Yes.
it. I thought that was funny. Also, I didn't realize it at the time, but Dominus is like a major factor in the Castlevania games during this one specifically. I'm going to show my my whole ass here and admit that I have not played most of the Castlevania games, and I have finished even less of them.
Me neither. Don't worry. You're in good company here.
It's like the whole excitement is so I can finally play the series, because I never got the opportunity back when they were in their heyday. But yeah, it turns out the Dominus is like the big chosen one now that is supposed to fight Dracula, but the problem is that just doesn't seem to work out for the one character that I've played, which is in Order of Ecclesia with Shinoa, I believe, is the main character, a much loved character that I just knew nothing about outside of the fact that she's really cool and she loses all of her emotions at the start of the game. And I thought, that seems really weirdly specific. But overall, the game itself is amazing. The art is so cool. The way you have 2 attack buttons now, they both use MP like a stamina bar, which I did not realize was such a prevalent
soul thing.
Yeah. So you can just mash the buttons as long as you have the MP that goes down, and then it immediately regenerates, which is a new thing for Castlevania as far as I'm aware, because I played through the Advanced Collection. I don't remember it being that case. So you can't just mash the attack button forever. You have to actually like plan it out, do your little dash moves and everything. But overall, it's really cool. They immediately gave you a traversal option, which is like to change gravity in certain areas, and it had you shooting all over the place. I realized immediately, which was like a little DS thing to have you use the stylus to move the character around. But the way that they put the effort into making it so that you can either use the touchpad and R2 for like a cursor, or
right stick.
Some things.
No, and the right stick to use the cursor also.
Right. So it's like really clever what they did. And I think it was you could choose one or the other. But anyway, all of the accessibility options, of course, is now staple for those collections. The rewinding time, the multi-save files, all of that extra stuff is just so cool. And it makes me so happy that this exists. And now I did not realize that the Symphony of the Night bundle that came forever ago now is a PlayStation exclusive.
Yeah.
So now we have access to like 15 plus Castlevania games, all down to the most obscure ones, and most systems cannot play Symphony of the Night, which is widely considered, to anybody who doesn't know, one of the best and most popular.
It's available in the backwards compatibility 360 version on Xbox, so there's a way for that to be played, but on Switch, not that I'm aware of. So.
Which I would say is probably one of the best places to play it. I mean, obviously, the fact that the Game Boy Advance collection and DS collection were so popular, and they just decided to completely go away from home theater releases besides, I think, the PS2 games and Lords of Shadow. Just, it goes to show how well that style of game works for portable, and it makes me want them to either revisit it again with more accessibility options, or at least put that bundle onto other systems, because now I'm traveling over the weekend and I'm like, man, it would be really nice to have that Castlevania thing on the Switch, even though I know I wouldn't play it if I wasn't traveling. It's just it makes me have this moment of like, man, I wish for an alternate world where Sony had stayed in the portable space and I could just download all of the really easy to play games on some kind of remote contraption.
Technically, you can with your phone with remote play.
That's their solution. I don't think you can do it without either. It's a whole thing, but there's like a lot of caveats to it, and I could not get it to work.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like, if you do remote play with your account and you're getting the games you are like through the kind of like a primary system from someone else to have access to your account, you could still play it. You just need to have internet. So
yeah, I was gonna say you have to have the internet, and doesn't it still have to sort of bounce off your system?
Your system has to be on, like connected to the internet for it to like know where to get that game from. That's like what remote play is. So, but that's your solution, and you can also get a PlayStation Portal that works with if you're connected to the internet. Same thing.
Garbage.
People actually really like it. People say it's much better.
A regular system that I can just boot up my account and not have to worry about all that garbage. But anyway, that's where we are right now. And that's all that I've played besides the thing we're going to talk about. What about you, Alejandro?
So I mentioned after we had talked about what we've been playing that I also had been playing Myth Wukong. The thing was that we just started playing it briefly before we started recording, and then we got code for Star Wars Outlaws, the game that I did the review for. And so I only played it briefly, and I originally was planning on not getting this game because I was like, I already did Stellar Blade, which was not quite a Souls-like, but had enough things while still being unique. And then I did the mother of all Souls-likes with Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. So I was like, I feel like Erdtree in particular would be like more than enough to satiate me for that kind of game for a while. And I had originally heard that Myth Wukong was just another one of those kinds of games. So I was like, you know what? Unless it's like this monumentally like highly reviewed, like this is completely unmissable kind of game. It was like, I was gonna be okay on missing it. But then the thing that happened was that obviously the game came out and reviewed great, like low 80s. If anything is between 80 and 90, it's like that to me, if I'm interested, I'm gonna get something like that. It's beneath that I think about it a little bit more. And I was like, okay, yeah, it's like this seems like a good wait for sale thing. And then I started following some of the accounts that were playing it, like from people that I trust, of them saying and you had also mentioned it, but then when I saw that what you mentioned was been like repeated by many people, I was like, look, it looks like a Souls game. It has kind of like the song and dance of a Souls game and the camera of a Souls game, but it's not one. It's more actiony. It's more of an action RPG. The punishment of the risk reward of dying and losing your stuff is not there. You're just constantly leveling up. It's like a boss rush linear game. So when all of that was kind of like being gathered together, I was like, that actually sounds mighty appealing. And then I got to see like a 30-minute, like someone posted the first 30 minutes of the game on like Twitter /X, and then I got to see like the beginning, and I got to see the scale and the beauty of it. I was like, they got me. I need to try. I really need to like they got me with the FOMO. And also knowing that was more action, I was like, I think I could do something that is just not that methodical. But let me tell you, this game can be hard as balls. Real hard as balls sometimes. But because it's like so linear, and again, like you are constantly leveling up, and you have your skill trees to kind of like keep like building up better movements that you can keep using it. And obviously it also has the Souls mechanic of you're like at a sort of bonfire, but not really. It's like a how can I say, it's like an idle thing that you kind of like just throw some incense, and then that's your rest point, and then you can like like you can buy some stuff from like a makeshift store there, so you can buy maybe like uh, some items for you to like not just heal yourself, but kind of like for damage resistance and all that, and then enemies respawn, and then you could kind of like go back and forth and grind it out if you need to, if you're having trouble. That everything is like so quick and so snappy and so like close together that I was like, yes, it's like I'm really vibing with this, because it's like this is kind of like the point that I always wish we kind of got there, and I feel like this next to Stellar Blade is the thing that makes me happy where we are with like the Souls likes, in that we know that From Software has like inspired so many people for so long, like now for so long, like a lot of people are like, so you see so many games you think it's a Souls, like we got the first Berserker Kazan coming soon, that it's very clearly also model on that. But I feel now we're in the point where I feel developers get it, that they will never be able to beat From Software at their game, so they're gonna take the inspirations and they're gonna try to find their unique flavor to them. Like the Jedi games, kind of like they took more inspiration off Uncharted and Tomb Raider this time around with Jedi Survivor, while still have kind of like that lock on, still risk reward. If you lose the XP you have, like you may have gained if you didn't have like the skill points already like collected, like you could lose that. God of War 2018 moving the combat to the shoulder buttons, which is a Souls like staple, but not having any of the punishment of it. Stellar Blade kind of like occupying that middle spot between a character action based game, combo driven game like a DMC and Bayonetta, and then kind of like having the iframe dodging and parrying of Sekiro, and a Souls like kind of like the bottom, but being like somewhere in the middle. That I feel like now we can see at a Souls that a game looks like a Souls like, and not immediately be like it's just like a Souls like. I feel like now we have to pay more attention of if they're really doing something unique, or if they're gonna be like Lies of P, that it's clearly that's one that's so modeled towards the Soul, kind of like the Souls mentality. So like down to the way the camera even like flows, and the parry kind of like clings whenever you get a perfect parry in Lies of P. So it's like I feel it's more. It would be very reductive to reduce that genre to like one thing, and obviously we know there's a lot of people that like reducing a lot of games to like the most common denominator. I feel like Souls like has kind of become that, but I feel like Black Myth Wukong now like shows me why it would be one that's more linear, more quicker, like more combat driven, kind of like a lot because you have a monkey that has a staff where you kind of like just wailing your staff until you do like a finisher combo. That sometimes that finisher is what staggers an enemy at the perfect moment. You kind of have to time that while being also very dodge driven. It's like, so it's been very unique. I've overcome a few tough parts. It hasn't been like I feel just the fact that you never lose your XP makes it different if you're trying to go again compared to like a Souls. Like if you have a ton of souls, that this wasn't a problem with Elden Ring, that gave you so many tools to recover tons of souls if you somehow lost them. But yeah, it's like I would say Black Myth Wukong has been pretty good. Let's see if I end up beating it. But it's like it just had to happen at this super now. We were resting a little bit during the summer, even though the summer was still pretty packed. We're back again to release season, like just game after game after game after game. Yes, and then because I need to touch upon it, because we got sent codes, so we got sent codes due to desperation. I got Concord, the version that opened on Friday, and of course we all know this is not a news show anymore, but it's like the big talking point about Conquer is just what a high profile failure it has been with its Steam numbers.
It's honestly a little heartbreaking in a lot of ways. And then somebody pointed out that, correct me on the exact fact checking here, but they closed 2 studios and then fed all of the people into working on that. Activision, what were the names of those?
No, I think you probably see some of those tweets of like they closed Japan studio to funnel all their money into this, something like that. It was just kind of like it was just, I saw a tweet like that a lot of people, because Conquer has been just such a massive like player failure,
or just
ingest
the punching bag.
Yeah, it's a punching bag of like, man, look at Sony. It's like they had Studio Japan, which is where Bloodborne came out, and all their unique identity.
That's what I was hearing. Okay, that was like, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, that they closed Japan Studio like 3 years ago, like in 2021. Right. This was around the time where we were hearing about that in the Jim Ryan era. Their big games were just gonna be all blockbusters, which was gonna be a big how can I say this, uh, it's kind of like a big heartbreaker for people that always loved the PlayStation brand, that this was the home for the big games and also the quirky little games. And then suddenly something shifted during the late PS4 era when God of War hit so big, when Spider-Man hit so big, and obviously The Last of Us hit so big that it was, and Horizon also hit so big, despite people trying to deny it, it has sold 33 million copies between its two games. So it's like, it's still popular, it's just not social media liked. But it's like, all those games were like hitting so big that then it was like, oh yeah, Sony's just gonna focus on this now. And all the little stuff that would have filled up in between is gone, and that's what Studio Japan used to do. And then like now, obviously with the live service initiative, that Concord is the first official like product out of like the big statement, we want to get into live service. And look what a failure it's been to catch on, at least in the PC side of things, where the Steam numbers are like so visible for people to see, especially like when you compare how Concord is doing to like how Black Myth Wukong was doing. That obviously been propped up by the Chinese audience really like really coming to support their game that was made in their country. Like those Steam numbers really have dominated the conversation. Here's the thing, like I was talking with Ains, my EIC, who did the review for Concord for Season Gaming. He published it recently. He gave it an 8. And he said that he has never seen, like in recent years, a wider gap between the quality of the game and the way the game is being received. The way the game is being received, it's not at all kind of like it's so undeserved for the polished, actually really fun game that Concord really is. It's like, it's a really solid shooter, and dare I say, is the best playing hero shooter that's there in the market, at least because it has like people that nailed shooting mechanics from the days of Halo and the days of Call of Duty. Like you can feel a lot of Destiny in this game. Like when you play it, like there's some characters there that feel like a warlock, have that hunter dodges, or some that can create like barricades. Like there's so many Destiny analogs that you can find in this game, but this game actually feels tuned for PvP compared to Destiny that does not, because of its million permutations and all that. It's very limited in modes, but it's not it's pretty solid. The thing is, like, the art style of that game is pretty horrible, despite the fact that it's such a high fidelity game. But it's like, when you look at it, it's so uninspiring in many spots that they try to give something that could have been very stylized, which, by the way, like, if you go deep into that game, like level up a character and you kind of get lore background dumps with written lore that has kind of like this cartoony art style to them, that people are like, when they see them, it's like, man, like when you see what these characters look like with an animated cell shaded look, and then you see the in-game models that kind of look like cosplays of that, is like, I feel like this was probably a Sony mandate, because, you know, Sony's all about the high fidelity and all of that. The big selling point about this game is that they're gonna do weekly cutscenes that are all like mo-capped and all that, because Sony's all about that. That in their pursuit try to give that realism polish is like,
I think that's what's killing me about it the most. Like I love the style, I love the vibe of it all. It's very like if you took the Guardians of the Galaxy and you turned it into a hero shooter situation. I love most of the designs for it. They did a really great job with that. And just like you said, the function as well, the shooting's really solid. But the realism filter going on there, because like the cutscenes are like this cell shaded, really cool looking thing like that.
Not quite cell shaded. It's more like CG. Like the cutscenes are like the very CG quality.
What is what I'm seeing? Where they're like really bright, almost. I mean, not quite like No More Heroes style, but it's like
those are just they're just still images of kind of that. That kind of look like concept art. They're like what these characters would have been. That would have been a better art style for this game.
That's what I was gonna get at with that, because that is so much more striking, and a lot of it didn't, like when you put those art pieces up next to the actual finished work, it's like, oh, I feel like we lost a little bit of that style and substance there, which is a real shame, because it makes a lot of the characters who are really popping and super interesting looking look really bland, or like they're wearing some kind of outfit that doesn't quite fit them. And anyway, not to get onto a Concord tirade,
because you played the beta.
Played it for like and maybe an hour the first time I got an opportunity for it, and then I went, oh yeah, that's fun. All right, I'm gonna go play other stuff now.
Yes, and that's the thing. Like, it's nothing remarkable, also, but also kind of like I feel there's a really haterade campaign that has really latched on to this game's like player failures over its Steam. to kind of like just like poo-poo it in a way that it's not deserved. It's like it's a way better game than a lot of the discourse, which by the way, like this has been like another one of those games that have been caught up in a very ugly culture war this year that kind of started all the way back into with Suicide Squad. Over like this I haven't even mentioned this throughout this whole year. There's this consulting company called Sweet Baby Inc. that apparently a lot of gamers, a lot of game companies like using because they like passing their games to, if they want to do something like inclusive or like that, has some sort of representation on that. Apparently they use this this consulting company to kind of like oversee to make sure that everything is kind of looking authentic, and a lot of, especially the incels, let's just call it that way, have been using this consulting company as kind of like a punching bag, saying that they're forcing diversity into games, and it's just become a really exhausting, toxic like discourse that doesn't even talk about the game. It just talks about all this stupid culture war nonsense. And Concord, the way some of these characters are designed, feel like they're straight out of something that may have passed through Sweet Baby Inc. And even like whenever we play with some of the people that play this game, everyone wants to make sure like, hey, I'm being attacked by the SBI chick. They tell like, if you have to say that, and then people already kind of know. It's like a smoke screen for racism and all of that. It's like that's what's this been, and this game has also kind of fallen victim of that, and just anything with representation this year, which is like, to me, it's like so stupid, because it's like people.
That's another discussion.
Yeah, it's another discussion that will take us forever, but it's like, these people exist. It's worth existing. It's not just about being us. Look, I'm a white-skinned Latino. I'm white-skinned. And also, like, I'm having here with my as white as a pale baby Paul
You're
here.
You're somehow
also
whiter than I am right
yeah,
now.
exactly. It's like, the world is diverse. Just get over it. That's just kind of how I see it. But yeah, it's like, Concord, pretty decent game. Like, the fact that it's a small download, I played that with my brother. I played it with the SG guys sometimes.
Shockingly small download.
Yeah, shockingly small download for the quality of for the visual quality that it has, despite my misgivings to its art style. That it's like, yeah, it's a game that, if for some reason it kind of looks interesting to you, I'll say at least on PS5, like, I have no trouble finding matches. They're pretty quick. So it's like in PlayStation, you don't really see like the player numbers as much. You can kind of like infer if something is like in the top sellers or something like that. But at the very least, when it comes to the PlayStation side of the PS5 side of things, like, I haven't had trouble playing matches. I'm not expecting this game to survive based on the fact that you kind of need PC to prop you up. Look what happened with Helldivers 2. That PC really is the reason that game really exploded more than anything. So yeah, it's like a Concord. It's an interesting. I can't wait to see how Sony responds to its perceived failure, especially on the PC side, whenever they have to do their financial reports pretty soon. But it's considering, like, when you think of PlayStation, Paul, what do you think? Usually, like, when you think of a first-party PlayStation thing, what's your like?
I mean, it's funny because I think of God of War.
Yeah, so, or more kind of like just in general, like, well, what do you expect, like, quality-wise, or like, yeah. So
I mean, it's like that's the big budget. Everything's motion captured. Everything's like hyper polished.
It sells a
like
lot.
The realism sells a lot. The hyper detailed everything. I still think this is slightly on topic, but somebody was trying to bash The Last of Us 2 of all things for not having enough realism because you couldn't shoot out a light. I was like, are y'all kidding me? You're looking at The Last of Us 2.
The game with the most detail, the most
detail.
Yeah.
You complaining about a light. But anyway. Oh gosh. But yeah, that's usually what I think of.
Exactly. So it's like, that's what a lot of people think of, and usually that's formula. For as much as I've criticized it recently, especially with certain people that put those games at too high a pedestal and think that everything should be made that way, instead of understanding there's like scales and ways and reasons why some of these games end up this way compared to why others aren't. It's still like, it's relative high quality that I've never seen a game that kind of still has that level of polish be this kind of like so bounced off by so many by so many people. But it's also kind of like an abject lesson of, this is a game that came out too late. We have moved past the hero shooter craze, and even then, like, there's still hero shooters that are successful, but they're already established. That kind of like wave already happened. And if you're gonna come in,
the other one that's
Marvel,
Marvel
Heroes.
Rivals coming in, and
Marvel Rivals,
show you how it's done. And the Valve created Deadlock is apparently making a lot of waves among at least the competitive professional
Yeah,
crew.
it's like a hero shooter slash MOBA what this is doing. So it's not even this like just straight up competitive uh,
There's ways to
hero
put
shooter.
spins on it that people are going to enjoy. It's just I don't think Concord's
Yeah,
the one.
here's the thing: Concord is a $40 game, whereas all of these other ones are free to play. That's probably its biggest. It came into the market completely being like standing out like a sore thumb, like where everything else is free, this is paid. So it will maybe become free to play soon. Here's the thing: like I remember I was talking with Ains about it, and he said that the thing that he loves the most about it is that because it's a paid game, he has prevented cheaters, the bot spammers, and all of that from kind of like infecting the game, and the game feels very clean with because of that. But unfortunately, the reality is that a lot of the market has been conditioned for free to play, which sucks. That you cannot just release like a paid thing. That was the thing that pleased me about Helldivers 2 because I didn't know the game was going to be successful. I really didn't. For
Yeah,
with its price, and it
it
ended up
shouldn't
being.
have been for all intents and purposes, and
Mm-hmm.
it hit that perfect little lightning in a bottle situation. I mean,
Ex-
and everybody always says how much it dropped off, but it's still reaching like 50,000 every day or something
People
like that.
one even the
It's
pal
joyful.
world the pal world like community manager said like
Yeah.
we would die for 9,000 90,000 concurrent people playing because it's still like playing. So it's like I think it's around that time. The problem is that people like Paul Tassi from Forbes have made their careers out of always reporting this game has lost X% of its player base all the time, kind of like just for clickbait headlines, and I feel that just becomes like fodder for you the negativity that doesn't really reflect the reality. And I think we're gonna have a few discussions about that now with topic of the show, Paul, because
Yeah.
no news, which is Star Wars Outlaws, which releases officially tomorrow. The early access started on Tuesday, and I've got to play it a week early, and because now it's out of here. It's like Paul got to play it also early because it was from my account, so he didn't get a code, but it was like playing from the account that that code was associated on. And thank God for like account sharing. You got to like play a bunch of that game. We got to get our opinions straight before we got to see like what the review reception was, and boy, that was fun, Paul. I would say like you can go read my
I
review over at seasongaming.com, but I want to hear from you like top level. What do you think? What do you think of both Outlaws and its reception?
I'll start with the reception itself because I want to get to actually talking about the game. Because my goodness, the amount of bad faith once again
Mm-hmm.
coming after the Star Wars IP
Mm-hmm.
for Ubisoft and for the style of game.
Mm-hmm.
Just it was like that perfect storm of
Venn diagrams, cross it
oh
to
gosh, it was like a circle because the amount of people who were like, "Oh, this looks so mid. It looks so bad. Oh my gosh, it's so boring. Everybody's looks so terrible. Look at those faces. They're so bland." And I, even now, having been the person that played the game
mm-hmm.
beforehand, I was like, I was so excited. I was telling you, I was like, I want to see
Mm-hmm.
like knowing my perspective is going to be so different because I've actually played the game for a good while. What
Before all
that's
of this
going to
came
feel
in.
like when everybody starts flooding in, when all they're responding to is not just like gameplay trailers and such. And it's sure enough, um, there was something in my soul that was like, "Are y'all freaking kidding me?" The journey we have come on from the dawn of video games, and you get the coolest like there's other games better, sure.
Mm-hmm.
There's other games that do it better in every way, but we have not had like a true open world Star Wars game where you could just be the person with the cool pistol.
Mm-hmm.
And we've asked for that for so long. Even the fact that they tried to canonize the reasoning behind you wanting to only use a pistol when
Mm-hmm.
there's a bunch of crazy heavy blasters lying around, people are still going to complain about every possible little thing because a couple of clips are going to go viral.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
not
they
to
sure
say,
have.
like, there's certainly valid criticisms, absolutely. But valid criticisms can also exist next to, but it's also really fun and I love it. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And man, people are so willing to just jump on stuff and just, oh, I'm gonna pick it up at $10 in a bargain bin. Like, okay, buddy, sure, have
Go for it.
fun. Let's all also enjoy ourselves. So I think that's gonna be where I stop my reception talk for
Mm-hmm.
right
Yeah,
now.
because
But
now about us.
it's about us now
Yes.
because man, this game is magical.
Mm-hmm.
there's a certain level of like, especially it's really easy to capture it in the screenshots more than
Mm-hmm.
gameplay
Oh
segments.
yes,
I've
absolutely.
noticed, which is not often that I can do that. Usually, like if you get a good gameplay moment that gets viral, you're like, oh, that's freaking sick, and like screenshots are like, okay, whatever. I don't know why like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is really, like, for me personally, screenshots don't do it for me, but
Mm-hmm.
gameplay segments are like, ooh, that was kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
And most other things. But for Star Wars Outlaws, a lot of the gameplay can seem bland at first until
Mm-hmm.
you're the one holding the controller.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the screenshots people are able, just pure art, the options you can mess around with for that, the Gene Park said it the best, like the hangout vibes,
Mm-hmm.
where like the ability, like the only other game that could really come that surpass it was Cyberpunk.
Mm-hmm.
Cyberpunk, goodness gracious, because you could just walk through the world. There was so much going on, so much to look at, so much variety. Outside of like, yes, the NPC faces aren't great, but also Star Wars is like 80% other aliens,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a game that actually manages to pull that off, because in a video game an asset is an asset regardless of if it's a person or an alien. So you got like a crap ton of aliens walking around and you could just do whatever, you could walk through things. You got this guy that's like working on something, he's welding, the guy next to him is just sitting there loafing around, you got somebody playing sabacc at a table, you got
Mm-hmm.
this other person trying to bet on something, and you're just walking through this really like claustrophobic but in a comforting way, grimy street. But like also all of the three options that they chose, at first I was kind of disparaging the whole like,
Mm-hmm.
oh look, we got another Southern California planet.
Yeah.
I will say there's a lot more variety in there than I was expecting.
It was
There's
less Southern
more going
California
on.
and more savannah. It was more like an
Yeah,
African savannah.
it was a
Mm-hmm.
bit more Savannah, but also I was worried that Tatooine was going to feel too similar to it, but no.
So.
Especially once you get your speeder,
Mm-hmm.
mechanics aside, with the ability to turn, the handling gets better, trust me.
Yeah.
um, but like when it opens up, normally I hate the wide open feel, like there's nothing, but there's something about a Star Wars game when you get out of the city, you just slam the boost button and there's nothing on the left or the right except for something super far. You see like a little ship kind of flying away, and I feel like I'm in Attack of the Clones with
Uh-huh.
Anakin on the speeder bike, and it's like and it
Uh,
is just, I'm in.
yeah.
Not to say nothing about the music, with how fantastic it is. Like they killed it with getting that feel of the John Williams score. I get into shootouts, I get into chases,
Mm-hmm.
I'm walking around, I'm just like, I feel like I am the Star War.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just in it. I just, my words kind of fail me, honestly, but I will have to say just how good it feels to move around in that world.
Yeah. I would say like I reviewed this game and I gave it an 8, and here's kind of like how I see it. It's like if you were to like really judge this game from a how it is as a game mechanically, I would say that this is one of those games where everything about it is so good except the gameplay. In that, from like you can look at it and it's basically, oh yeah, it's like you made the joke about Uncharted. It's like at a glance, this is like an Uncharted Star Wars. The way like the main character Kay moves, kind of like the way the camera is placed and some of the flow of things, and even when it gets kind of messy and you're just in the middle of shootouts with either pirates or the stormtroopers or whatever crime syndicate is. So it has that, though it is also a game that feels very undercooked in specific areas, kind of like in stealth, considering how incredibly like how incredibly they push stealth on you. Because it's like it's a game where you're literally gonna be stealthing around so much you would think you're playing like this is just Uncharted Star Wars. This is Splinter Cell Star Wars. So many like don't raise any alarms, and you gotta really be slinking around, and then sometimes those slinking arounds can break on opportune times by rules that are not being followed by the game as they have set them up. And then like a few kind of like glitches here and there, and kind of like some stuttery animations, and kind of like maybe stiffness whenever you're kind of like knocking around on enemies and all that. Is like there's a level of kind of jankiness that I call in my review scrappy. And I feel like what's ironic is that Star Wars Outlaws is the most modern, scrappy Star Wars game we've gotten for good and ill, and that fits so well for Star Wars. This may not be holistically a great game, but on what you have mentioned, like how magical it is, like living in a Star Wars world that gets the Ralph McQuarrie art style on and on design, on everything in the worlds that you visit, even when you have to visit 2 sequel places like Canto Bight and Kijimi, it's like it feels so authentically this world. And if you always ever wanted was to live in a living, breathing Star Wars world where you're like vibing, kind of like you mentioned, where you're like, where you want to like walk around instead of just rushing, you're kind of like, I just kind of want to vibe. Like I'm like walking in like the Marlboro Man, even if I'm like chick right now, as I'm going to like this cantina. Oh, I can lean here. I'm gonna lean here for a little bit. I can lean in the Star Wars to kind of hear conversations about something happening in some weird corner of the galaxy. How like it fulfills kind of like that wish fulfilling fantasy of living in a Star Wars world, that any gameplay problem that it's worth criticizing, and it's a big point of contention for many people that are not well versed in stealth specifically. It's like, to me, it's sidestepped by the fact that I just love existing here. Kay Vess, incredibly charming, a charming, relatable character, and probably my favorite female character introduced in the Disney era of Star Wars, because it's like neither a Mary Sue or a know-it-all. It's kind of like she has that Han Solo like scrappiness to her, and I feel that kind of scrappiness of like things being down on her luck, and she kind of like getting out of things by the skin of her teeth with her relation, and also with her relationship with Nyx, her little alien companion that's with her all the time. It's like helps a lot in endearing you, while kind of like being immersed in the crime city underbelly of the Star Wars saga. I would say that I really love these games, kind of like trying to play around with the idea that you can like side yourself with 4 different crime syndicates, like you do missions for them that earns your reputation, that gets better rewards, and then you can kind of just link it to their base normally, and you're kind of like trusted the same way that if you're not aligned with a syndicate or you're perform, just the act of exploration can be pretty deadly, because if they see you out, they will know that you either double cross them or you're not to be trusted, and they can gun you down. It's like it kind of nails the idea of kind of like being like it's you against the Star Wars world, especially when you're also against the Empire, and the Empire can sometimes be trailing you with how often you have to infiltrate their bases. That I feel there's just so much that if you are a Star Wars fan that has not become jaded by the brand on promises under delivered, or maybe some TV shows here and there that have not delivered like the entire on the promise that was kind of set up, or you have been kind of like more enchanted with something a little bit more serious like Andor, let's say, I feel like Outlaws actually takes more in the spirit of that original trilogy to a T. People adore those movies, that they forget that those movies were created by the skin of their teeth. There's a sense of kind of like, man, it's insane how they were able to create this in such creative ways and in such scrappy ways, that I feel a lot of people just want to see Star Wars as this kind of high art that I don't think fits the brand well. And I feel that's kind of where we get into problems, which is kind of why to me it's ironic that I've been having many conversations with people that the stealth is really doing them in. I like the inconsistencies and all that, but then at the same time they're like, I have nothing but great things to say about the vibe. Like there's just so many great things to mention about just how, to me, you went to Tatooine already, right? Like just being on Tatooine was magical. A place I'm so sick and tired. Yeah, you've been to all, including Akiva, the green lush place. So Akiva and Toshar, I think, are new planets from like what I understood that they created for this game. Whereas Canto Bight, Kijimi, and Tatooine are movie places basically. Yeah. When I got to Tatooine, and I was like, is that Luke? Is that the Lars homestead? And you're kind of walking down, and you get and you go to like where the diner, where they had a diner in New Hope, and you walk out, and it's kind of like the thing. I was like, wow, they really perfectly recreated. And then when you get to Mos Eisley, and if you've seen that movie, you've seen those movies before.
I thought I was gonna hate Tatooine because of how many times we've seen it
in recent times.
Yeah. Getting to go into it as like a fully built out place. I was remembering like Battlefront 2, real ones remember the heroes versus villains mode.
Oh yeah.
But like you said, I think it was to Sebastian,
Uh-huh.
when you were like, I looked around at one point and I went, I know where this is.
Uh-huh.
I've been here a
Mm-hmm.
million times. In like the original Star Wars, I wouldn't say that it does like the best job at like orienting you in
Mm-hmm.
like a real place as much as like feeling like you could navigate it yourself as much as knowing it's like a real lived in place. But this
Mm-hmm.
time I was walking around, I went, oh, this is that clearing. This
Uh-huh.
is where that ship is in the background. If I
Uh-huh.
turn this way and like you see the cantina just the
Uh-huh.
way it was, and it went, oh, I could go in. It's like
Yes.
you just become a kid again suddenly. Like you do, it's so much a like more than the sum of its parts.
Mm-hmm.
Is the best way that I could describe that game. Like every piece, almost every piece of critique and frustration is valid.
Mm-hmm.
Because yes,
And I
it
share
is not a
it in
perfect
many,
game. It's
and I
got
share it in many
issues.
in many places.
We have shared our frustrations with both the stealth, the speeder bike, the weird systems going on, the way it snaps your aim away from what you're trying to aim at when you get
Mm-hmm.
spotted, all of the issues with like reusing certain assets, which aren't even really issues, let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And like anything related to like the way the plot kind of is weird, the
Mm-hmm.
fact that K-Vess isn't much of a character in herself,
Mm-hmm.
the the consequences for running around in the crime syndicate of Star Wars and just kind of betraying everybody all the time. But they're like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's okay. You're just going to be a mercenary. Well, let's hire for the next one. And I was
Uh-huh.
like, I don't know if Jabba would be okay with that,
Yeah,
guys. Let's be real.
because that and that's kind of like why I said that there's so many great ideas that then kind of go a little underbaked. Like I feel early on, especially when you have to make the hard choices for like the syndicates, where you're giving it to, you feel the weight of like, oh, so it's gonna give me that much and it's gonna make me lose that much. That is that system at its best. That then completely falls apart once the contract brokers are introduced.
Yeah.
Because these are like the fetchy side questy stuff that you do something fetchy that can fill up you're standing with a syndicate. So you're like, if you really like hone in and just doing a bunch of these contracts, you can have good standing with all the 4 different crime syndicates in a way that then is like, come on. It's like I really much prefer kind of like that tension of really making the hard choice of who you wanted to pick. And and I just feel that by them giving you like a very gamey way to kind of like game that system, kind of loses a bit on the potential of being able to like make that hard choice. And I feel like that the game was at its best when it was like giving you those hard choices, but also kind of dovetails into the fact that this game also just gets better the more you play it further in. But it's such a rough start early on, where the choice and consequence was probably the most like intriguing part of those early eras, where like the stealth felt bad, was like things were still, you're stuck in the first savannah planet for like a little too long. And world navigation, especially in that savannah when you're like seeing the rock formations, I feel like I think I can climb that. Why am I not able to climb that? Why am I like sliding down all this time? It's like especially for me, you know how I am with open world games, that I'm like, I really want to clear out a bunch of this content. I see a question mark. I want to see what is there. There's some really cool rewards, especially some really fun exploration that you can do. Like if you actually kind of follow through on like maybe some tips or the diegetic way they finally design one of these open worlds and start. Here's one of the funny things. Is like I feel like Ubisoft has taken a lot of well-deserved grief over like the meme-worthy like busy UI, bloated worlds, and all that. And I feel one of the biggest strengths of Outlaws that is not being given credit enough is how this has distilled a lot of the bloat into something that, by being presented in a more diegetic way that feels very immersive, there's a point where you can get so many side quests and intel that you can do that maybe more than you probably like. But it's presented in a way that I never felt overwhelmed by content barf that you can see like in the maps, because if you just let yourself like be immersed in a way that you can in this world, that you don't really get immersed in many modern Ubisoft open worlds, because everything's like so mechanical. Even when some mechanical stuff, kind of like what happens with the reputation system, kind of get introduced, and usually like when you get to a vendor, it's like it has a very live service style like a presentation when you get into a vendor. I don't like, especially because the characters like so bland in that spot. There are a few things of those things that kind of slip through the cracks, but there's just the general vibe and immersion of kind of like I mentioned, you just wanted to exist in these worlds, that I feel is some of the best that I've seen out of Ubisoft. That really, once you get out of Toshara, when you start getting those upgrades, you start vibing more with like the rest of the planets, when you're flying around in the ship and it's all seamless.
Oh
Even though it's all a loading screen.
Somebody was talking smack about that,
Uh-huh.
both from the aspect of like this gotcha idea of, oh, we see that it's a hidden loading screen, and then some people are like, oh, man, you're gonna be so tired of this all the time. It's like, I would rather this than just a black screen. What are you talking about?
Looking
Like,
at you, Starfield.
we are so spoiled, and
Mhm.
y'all are so complaining.
Yeah.
Even Gene Park actually agreed with one of them. He was like, yeah, I just fast travel now. And I was like, buddy, do
Yeah.
you not remember the Starfield days when everyone was like, fast travel, everything is terrible, don't do it? So that was like a weird misstep that I felt for me, because I sit back, I put my controller down, and I kind of just watch, because I
Yeah.
love the feeling, the sound, the music that swells, the way it just freaking guns it up into the stratosphere, or when you're landing. It's just
It's all presentation. It's like the presentation. They put such an eye for this game to feel cinematic, even though it's an open world. And I feel that's kind of like also one of the weird strengths and weaknesses of this game, of how cinematic it is. That at many times, excluding stealth, because that's not really Uncharted's thing, it did feel like you were playing an Uncharted game that was more curated and was supposed to be more linear, and it got stretched into an open world. And I kind of say it because Uncharted, at its most distilled, it's a very basic gameplay experience there to serve the spectacle. And when you're put in an open world where things can emerge and you kind of feel like you can interact with more stuff, or feel like you can make your own fun, which has been kind of like the Ubisoft motto for a while. It's like when then those two things clashes, where you only have your one blaster, that it takes a little bit before your blaster can have at least 3 different modes, so it doesn't feel like you only have one way. That then, like, there's options to pick up weapons in the world, but it's like sometimes you're gonna fight 2 enemies that have the exact same weapon, you're gonna kill them both, and you can only pick the gun from one. It's not like something that when you kill an enemy, then you can grab that and make it like part of your arsenal. It feels like when the game is at its most linear, at its most curated, I feel it's at its strongest, because I think it fits kind of like the character of Kay, where you're just linking around a shit. You're not meant to, like, I know it's tempting, I've done it myself, like, you just want to take down every enemy where you're on the cap. I feel the right way to do this is just evade and try to make your way, because you're not meant to be like someone that can take on the Empire on your own, you know. I feel like those are kind of like the vibes.
That is, you don't get XP from just taking out enemies randomly.
Yeah,
like there's no benefit to
it's not an
yourself
RPG
in danger like
it's
that.
not an RPG.
You could just slip by and you lose nothing, you gain nothing. It's just, you have to get from point A to point B, and I've actually really appreciated. Goodness gracious, I've really appreciated that, because it's helped me change the way that I view it, as opposed to like the Valhalla method of, well, I need the XP, so I'm going to take everyone out.
Yeah, and that not always happens. That's all the way from Far Cry. We always kind of have those XP. Ubisoft recently has been like pulling back on trying to do XPs. Like even Avatar was like that. Instead of gaining XP, they made a gear system. So there's actually no gear system here to level up, other than you getting some pieces of gear that could hit K.
I also appreciated, because another case of the internet's hypocrisy, where everyone's like, I'm so tired of the loop system, all the upgrading of that, of all the outfits of this, and then here comes a game that's like, yeah, don't worry about it, like, don't even try to waste your time. And they're like, man, I kind of wish it was a little bit better, man.
And here's the thing, like, there's some like pieces from your outfit that can actually make your character better, because they come with perks.
There are a few, yeah.
I really love the ones that can actually improve on stealth, especially when the thief sets are pretty good. And there's also transmog everything, so if you like the look of anything else, like you immediately have that completely for free. I'm like, yes, this is the Assassin's Creed Odyssey transmog system. I'm glad it wasn't the Valhalla one that cost money to not real life money, but actual like currency for you to get the transmog. But it's like there's ways where they've distilled their bloaty design and of making everything an RPG, but then at the same time, because this is a Ubisoft style open world game, then if you play other of their games, if you desire a little bit more authorship, where you could imagine, think about it, Paul, you're a Mandalorian, this exact same game with the exact same exploration and all that. And it's like, I'm gonna be a sniper Mandalorian. I'm gonna be starting like in this corner. I'm gonna take on everything. So I can kind of see, like, I see the blueprint of a game with more authorship in this game.
This inspires other people to be like, wait, hang on, I can make a couple of tweaks on this, and then
Uh-huh.
just give us like 80% of exactly what Outlaws was, and
Hmm.
then like just tweak it a little bit more,
Yeah,
give us some
add a little,
Mandalorian or
yeah,
anything like that,
add a
just
little bit more
whatever, man.
depth. Add a little bit more depth because gameplay is where Outlaws is lacking, but it's made up by the vibes. It's just on vibes and existing there that I'm always so enchanted that even though yes, this is a 77 Metacritic, this is like swimming in sevens, like typical Ubisoft and all that. I don't care because it's like a seven, a generally seven experience can still hit the right spot. And in this case, kind of because I'm used to my Star Wars being scrappy, where like the Millennium Falcon is kind of barely hanging by the seams, like as he's escaping the Empire, but at the end it makes it. I feel this is basically this game. Like there's so many parts in this game that I feel like there were so many design choices that were gonna like really do it in. That I was like, oh man, this especially in this case, me having to rush for review. My review. This was my first time that I ever had to do a review by embargo. I was told it wasn't like an obligation for you to do it, but I was like, they expect it. It's like they say that, but they can't expect it when they give you like an embargo, and they know who to trust if you're able to hit it. So I had still had to hit it. I feel this is a game I still would have loved to keep just enjoying and digesting because of the whole vibe thing. It really feels like it's a game that you really want to take it slow and kind of like soak it in. Especially when this is like one of the most beautiful open world spaces that Ubisoft has made. Like just go look at some people that are doing screenshots. It's like the way like the way this photo mode works is like you can make it look like you can make this game look so cool because it can be so cool despite the fact that its gameplay is adequate at best and poor at worst. So it's like if you ever love Star Wars and you're able to tolerate that, I feel like you owe it to yourself to check this one, even if it's not perfect. This is like far from my favorite experience from this year. I feel like I played other games that definitely have been better, but for my Star Wars loving heart, it hit the spot of what I wanted. Where even though I think the Jedi Survivor is a better game, I'm debating in my mind if I like this more than Fallen Order on vibes alone, but it's something that I'm kind of like debating, and that could be like a fun debate. But I feel like the tones that these two games are hitting are different, but I feel like Outlaws hits on the dream of what we probably wanted for a long time, and Jedi is just like better executed. The thing is that you have the two flavors, and I'd rather more of these Star Wars games that at least try something instead of like us not getting it at all. It's while Star Wars has existed for almost 40 years. Uh, this is the first time we've got a seamless open world. We've gotten hubs before. Look at KOTOR, but one where oh yeah, we're gonna give you a side mission that you're gonna pursue a crate dragon in your like speeder bike. It's like there's so many things that just exude coolness in this game. And when then you go to Jabba the Hutt and see like all the little Easter eggs that you can find, the detail of like its big interiors, and just the seamlessness of you going from Mos Eisley to Jabba the Hutt's palace. Kind of like it's just something that if you're like a kid that has always like a if you remember what it was like, kind of like the magic of Luke looking at the distance with the binary sun and thinking of like the kind of like grand adventure that it implied. I feel Outlaws gets that spirit, even though it's far from perfect. Way too imperfect, but imperfection is Star Wars. And that's all I have to say. You can go read my review for that. I gave it an 8. Even though I said it's not a great game, holistically, it's a great time. And if I have a great time, that's an 8 for me. So
Imperfect, but I love it like a 10.
exactly. So Paul, anything else you want to say about Outlaws before we read the releases for next week? I have them listed.
I've kind of said everything that I need to say. It's a game that, like, if you think that you are burnt out with all the Ubisoft stuff, maybe wait. But if you're just at least curious and you really like Star Wars and you haven't been burnt down with all the people in your ear chattering, I definitely think that you can find something special.
Exactly. So, Paul, read us the releases for September 1st to September 7th. We can't believe it's September already.
It's crazy. Yeah. All right, we got The Casting of Frank Stone on PC, PS5, Xbox Series X and S on September 3rd. Quidditch Champions on PC, PlayStation, is that 4
Plus.
or 5? Yeah. PlayStation Plus, Xbox, Switch on September 3rd. Age of Mythology Retold on PC, Xbox Series X and S on September 4th. Astrobot on PS5 on September 6th. Ace Attorney Investigations Collection on PC, Switch, Xbox One, and PS4 on September 6th. Warhammer 40,000, Space Marine 2, PC, PS5, PSX, and S, and that is on September 9th.
Yeah, I apparently put another game. Technically, here's the thing. Technically, it's out also September 6th if you pay the expensive edition. So see that as a PSA. And from this, Quidditch Champions is gonna be on PS Plus starting that same day, and then Age of Mythology Retold is gonna be on Game Pass. So I'm definitely excited for that one. But next week is all Astrobot for me. That's my most anticipated game for. They're like one of my most anticipated games for like this fall. So the fact that it's already this close, I'm glad that we're what a dry year. The dry year just keeps giving us food, right?
Year, let me tell you. You walking into a desert, you find a buffet.
Yeah, it's like it's just man. I think we're about to eat really good this next 2 months with everything that's kind of coming out.
I am going to be throwing up from how much I'm eating. I can barely finish what we have right now.
Oh yeah, and
at all.
I bought mana.
Oh my gosh. Freaking. I'm shutting this off so I can start catching up now. You can find me on Dork of Art at Twitter. That's it. Where can they find you?
They can find me at _Segovia on Twitter/X, at Alejandro Segovia93 on Instagram/Threads, and you can find my written content which include the old stuff at thecriticalcorner.com and my recent reviews over at seasongaming.com, where you'll find my reviews for The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, Skull and Bones, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Final Fantasy XVI The Rising Tide, the garbage TMNT arcade game that I always forget its long subtitles, Stellar Blade, and also now Star Wars Outlaws. And I may be reviewing Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2, we'll see. So, we might get for that one. I asked Paul, but we didn't get for mana. That's it for this week's episode of DX Button. So if you're enjoying this new tighter format, let us know what you think. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. Tell us what else would you like to see, maybe topic wise, since we would like to talk more about like fun stuff instead of reading the extremely dire news that tends to always just bring us down about the world.
Sick of that negativity. We can't have that in our lives anymore. We talk about fun things in this house.
Exactly, and being honest about fun things, and then being honest when things are really not. But it be all in a place of honesty, not a grift and just fake, just fake negativity like what's happening on Twitter with all that engagement farming. But yeah, thank you so much. We will see you next week at the same time, same place for the X Button. So. Enjoy gaming. Hopefully, enjoy Star Wars Outlaws. Hopefully, you were not playing on PS5 on Tuesday and had your entire save be deleted for some reason by a recent patch. Thank God that didn't happen for us, because otherwise my tone would have been way different today. Like you say, we kind of dodged a bullet since we played on PS5. But
at least for now.
For now, imagine if another patch ruins it, I would hate it. I would hate for that progress, because I'm really vibing. But until next time, we'll see you next week. Enjoy games and
press X
to play.
Good night, everybody.
Hasta la vista, baby.